Hi folks, Florida Man here, and today I'm bringing you an after-action report on a PDT SuperPastis21 game. This time it's game 1C. Hello Brian, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
And you were participating in this SuperPastis tournament. You were in, I believe this is game 1C, correct?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And which country did you play?
I played France, and I've enjoyed. There's been a few seasons of the Super Pastis tournament, and I've played, I think, in all of them. So I was happy to play in the tournament again and get this kicked off, first game of the new season. When I play France, I always like to, for people that are familiar with diplomacy, this will probably be pretty simple, but I really like to make sure I get good communications going with England and Germany, Italy as well. Those are probably the three most important, but I would say England and Germany the most important for me. So yeah, that's what I did. It's a good format. I enjoy the I think they changed it a bit this year, so we went to could have gone to 1909. So there is a cutoff there. I think it was 1907 last season. And so you can't be too patient, but at the same time, you got to make sure that you have some allies to work with, or it could be a short game. You could certainly get finished off in that period of time, no problem.
Absolutely, but pretty difficult for most people to get to a resolution by 1907, certainly. So I think giving an extra couple of years is probably an improvement.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, you can't necessarily wait for the, sometimes in a long game, it can go back and forth a few times and you won't have that much leeway. It's probably only gonna, someone's gonna pick up some strength and some momentum and, probably be able to carry that through to the end, at least in the games that I've seen so far. So a good start is pretty important.
So what was your strategic outlook from the beginning of this game? What were you thinking doing?
Well, my favorite strategy is France. And, I always have a plan A whenever I go into a game of diplomacy, and hardly ever does plan A work out. You always end up with plan B or plan C or plan D. But plan A for me when I play France, I always really like to have, France, Germany, Russia alliance. That's my favorite, because England, I find, is always so difficult to eliminate. They've just got such a strong defensive position. And if you have an FGR, you can take out England first. And then you're pretty safe as France after that. Germany's in the middle. You've got Russia on his other side, so there's not too many chances for him to come after you. And then it's just a matter of trying to get ahead at some point. So that's my favorite. And it didn't quite go the way I planned, though.
I see. Were there some diplomatic reversals? Was Germany or Russia not on board with your desire to, potentially eliminate England? Or
yeah, it was Germany. I mean, and as France, I usually like to have Germany on my side, so that was the relationship that I most wanted to make sure I had. And I was pretty sure when I started playing, I knew who the Russian player was. I played against him more than once, and usually like to ally with him. And I was pretty sure I knew who it was. But the other players I didn't know. And the German player was. He seemed to be right from the start pretty tight with England, and certainly I didn't want them to come after me. That was, when I started to get a feeling in the conversations that he and England had already, communicated quite a bit, and then it was okay. I did want Germany to try and form an alliance with myself and Russia, and I was pushing that, but it seemed difficult to break up what he had with England right from the very start. They seemed to have, some of the moves later might lead you to believe that he was worried about being stabbed, and he definitely was from what he told me. But at the beginning of the game, anyway, it seemed like he wanted to work with England. So I was pushing my agenda and just trying to get things started. But I was also talking to England and trying to get into that relationship as well. I played lots of games as an England-France alliance. And that can always work out well too. But I usually find it's a good two-way alliance, but you're going to have a hard time doing better than England, and the defensive position is so strong you can't really take them out at any point if you're trying to push east together. I thought the relationship was okay, but I wasn't totally confident at the end of the first year that I knew what was going to happen.
Well, let's see how that first season progressed. I see England open north, so that's looking good for you.
Yeah. We started having some discussions about doing a Western triple, sort of near the end of the first, just kind of before the spring orders were written. And, I was working with both England and Germany, but mostly separately. We hadn't really got a three-way message communication going quite yet. But we were talking about, probably the most important issue seemed to be who was going to get Belgium, which is kind of always it seems like a bit of a short-sighted thing to me, but, can be just a point for countries to argue over, right?
Oh, yeah. Something to bribe other players with, something to threaten them for. There's always got to be some small cause of war.
Yeah, exactly. And, sometimes I get Belgium and I usually regret it because somebody else wants it back or, thinks they deserved it and didn't get it. So, I like to certainly decide who gets it, but I don't necessarily feel like I need to have it. And sometimes it's just a difficult square to hold, right? It's so, even though you do get a build early on from it, it's not always a great long-term holding.
Yeah. So I guess this opening was probably pretty good for you. What were you expecting to happen from here?
Well, I was thinking that England had said that they did want Belgium. I moved to Picardy to make sure that I had some say in that. I did have some thought that maybe I could get it for myself. Germany had said that he didn't want it. So, but, clearly he wanted to make sure he had Holland. Germany had, that Sweden is always a big topic in 1901 as well. And he had said that he was thinking of letting Russia into Sweden. So I was still kind of pushing the FGR alliance angle, thinking maybe Germany would let Russia in there. And then that could turn into an attack on England. So while the Western Triple is certainly what I was pushing forward and moving towards, I wasn't jumping to the channel or anything like that. If an FGR had come together, still at this point, I would have been just as happy to work in that alliance, just because it's still the one was still my favorite. And so I was thinking about it, but I was making my moves like the Western Triple was there, and that was kind of my plan A and plan B at this point. So yeah, everything went as I had thought it would in 1901. I did have discussions with Italy as well, and we had talked about having a demilitarized zone in the Gulf of Lyon, Western Med.
Pretty typical, yeah.
Obviously, if I stayed with the Western Triple, I was going to have to break that agreement.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, so that was already in my head. But if something with Germany and Russia came together, I was certainly planning on keeping it. So it was a bit of just keeping all the options open at this point and seeing what other players were going to do. It's kind of a bit of a luxury that France has. You can be a bit patient and see what other people do. Some of the countries like Italy in particular, like you have to decide right away if Austria you're going to go after them or you're going to work with them. And but France has a lot more flexibility. Yeah,
it's one of the benefits of being sort of in a corner and having a couple of free dots you can go after in 1901.
Mm-hmm.
I see that in the fall here, it looks as if Germany supported England into Belgium, and Picardy tried to move to Belgium.
Yes, and I was a bit surprised. Germany had said he wasn't going to support him there, so I thought this was going to be a bounce. And then at the last minute, he decided rather than supporting himself to Holland, he was going to support England to Belgium and try and keep England happy that way. And you can see as well, he moved to Sweden and decided not to let Russia in there. Though there was a lot of conversations going on with Russia, and I think Russia obviously knew that he wasn't going to get into Sweden, so he made the move to the Baltic. So that was a bit interesting. But at this point, I was pretty sure that the alliance with Russia was not going to work out. But it was still under discussion, and I know Russia wanted it to happen. It was just Germany seemed to be more trusting of England than Russia. Really, I think that's what it came down to. And sometimes that's just the way players communicate. Maybe just resonate with what somebody is looking for more than the way somebody else communicates.
Yeah, no, it's that's always important, and I think clearly here Germany and Russia are going to have some trouble working together just based on the positioning they've gotten themselves into by the end of the year.
Yeah. So there was a bit of an unusual situation in the spring where Russia moved to Armenia, put his fleet in there, and then here in the fall, Turkey forced to disband with the move of his army to Armenia. So we were speculating that there was a juggernaut forming here, and that maybe Austria would be in trouble. Now, it turned out to be quite a bit different as the game went on, but at this point, we were thinking Austria was in a lot of trouble. Germany was not all that happy with the way this looked from a juggernaut forming, because as soon as Russia and Turkey moved through Austria, they could move through Germany after that. And so he didn't want to be occupied with England and get attacked from the east. So I think that went into a bit of his thinking about Sweden as well. And so I can hardly blame him. This is kind of the way it looked like a juggernaut was coming together. Moving the fleet, Russia moving the fleet to Armenia is kind of unusual. This was kind of the only outcome that we could see from moving the fleet that way. And so
that is not a usual Russian opening. And it does seem as if it's just asking for that fleet to be destroyed.
Yeah, it had to be prearranged, right? If you interview some of the other players, I'd be interested to hear what they say, but I'm pretty sure it must have been prearranged. And it really seems like Russia is, giving the south to Turkey. If Turkey decides to turn on him here, he's got a great position, right? He could certainly turn on Russia and move north, and Russia would have a hard time stopping him. The bright side of destroying the fleet is Russia can build an extra unit for use in the middle or the north, and so he's well set up from that point of view.
Agreed. Okay, going to the builds, I see you are. I could see it from the fall moves, but the builds show it equally well that you are clearly committed to the Western Triple now. You're heavy on the fleets, and you've got the fleet Spain South Coast. One of your armies is in Portugal. So all of your forces, except for the fleet in Brest, none of them really are useful against England and Germany. They're all oriented toward fighting Italy now. Yeah.
So through the discussions of the build phase, I had at this point pretty much given up on the FGR. Russia, on the other hand, though, was still trying to convince Germany and built the fleet on the north coast of St. Petersburg to try and signal that he was very willing to go after England. And because that fleet up there cannot do anything really against Germany. I was, if Germany had decided to change his mind and go after England, I could have changed direction still at this point. The way the builds were done, I could have moved to the Channel and Spain back to the Mid-Atlantic Ocean and reverse direction pretty quickly. We were set up as a good Western Triple opening here, and I felt like the Western Triple was probably in pretty good shape here. Even if Russia and Turkey have a juggernaut and they're coming together, my thought was, well, they're gonna hit Austria pretty hard first. Italy's going to have a hard time. He'll have to support Austria, but it may be hard to hold them back. And then if I hit Italy, Austria will crumble, and we'll have the Western Triple would have an advantage over just the Russian-Turkey alliance.
Yeah.
So that proved to be a bit of false confidence or overconfidence, because it didn't really go the way I planned. But at this point, I felt pretty good. England has stayed pretty much north. Russia building the fleet north coast keeps England occupied, so I wouldn't expect him to do anything crazy in the next year or so from here, because he's going to want to make sure that that fleet's just going to keep him under a bit of pressure. So he's unlikely to stab Germany or change gears and come after me.
Yeah, the English positioning, the English are logically going to want to go after Russia with that build, and so because of that, and because you are pretty heavy on fleets, I think you're certainly safe from England. The only thing that could be a problem is if Germany decides to try and launch a land invasion.
Yeah, definitely. He's got the armies. If England and Germany had come after me together, I would have been in a tough position for sure. But I felt like my relationship with Germany was quite good. I was less certain about England. I think he just kept maybe his cards a little closer to his vest in terms of I wasn't always aware what he was going to do before the turn. But Germany I felt pretty comfortable with, and I didn't think he was going to attack me. So if you go to the next turn here, you'll see I move it on Italy, right? So I basically break the demilitarized zone that we had. I've been bringing the fleet from Brest around so that it can come into the Med. I did want to keep an eye on Burgundy. As much as I felt pretty comfortable with Germany, a move one of those German armies into Burgundy would have been pretty powerful and difficult for me to respond to. I would have had to retreat from Italy almost right away. So I felt fine about the moves I made, and I felt fine about the moves that England and Germany were making here. What caught me by a bit surprise was that there was no real attack on Austria here. You know, you can see there's a lot of support going on Russia's side. He's playing cautiously.
He's suspicious of Turkey.
Yep. And Turkey has even supported himself, but he's left the army in Armenia, which is, you know, possibly something that could be used against Russia. But nobody attacked Austria, and Austria made an aggressive move to Tyrolia, which is, you know, sort of probably, you know, a move against Venice, which he's realized is going to be, you know, not able to fight off two armies. And so, you know, Germany's got armies plenty to cover Munich. So I'm pretty sure at this point that Austria has decided to attack Italy, which is an unusual situation.
Yeah, this is really weird.
It makes me think that Austria feels comfortable that he's not going to get attacked by a Russia-Turkey alliance. And he's decided to take advantage of a weakness in the Italian position in Venice. So at this point, I start to think that there is not just a Russia-Turkey alliance, but maybe a Russia-Austria-Turkey alliance.
There might be a rat.
Yeah, there might be a rat in here. So certainly I was having discussions at this point with Austria, you know, thinking of ways, since I'm moving on Italy anyway, thinking of ways that maybe we can carve Italy up for both of us and work together a bit there. You know, I've got a few messages going to Turkey, nothing too serious at this point. But Russia, who I mentioned I played with a few times, good player, he wasn't really giving me much in terms of what was going on. So it was difficult for me to know exactly what you know, what the alliance was, but it certainly didn't look like Austria was worried.
Yeah, that it is kind of strange to see an Austria that's so confident that they're willing to move away from Russia and Turkey without having them attacking each other already, and yet it totally seems warranted from the outcome here.
Yeah, you know, I can only speculate, but I think there must have been you know, a lot of messages about a Western Triple and that being, you know, a danger and a risk, and we gotta pull together here and figure out a way to combat that. And I think this is what the strategy they came up with. You know, they decided that we were going to cut Italy loose, and the three of us in the East are going to get together and form an alliance here. And so, so that's kind of what happens. You know, Austria takes Venice, picks up a build there. You know, I start to move on the Italian position on the water, which you know, was what I was intending to do all the time. But yeah, the East position, you know, you see a bunch of supports, but Austria supports Turkey into the Ionian, so it was a big move there. And then the fleets that the fleet and the army that were on the Russian border have moved south, so Turkey is demilitarizing that situation. And what a bit unusual in terms of the Western Triple here, just before the turn, Germany got very nervous that he might get stabbed. There was talk about England and Germany swapping Belgium for Sweden. And then really close to the deadline, Germany realized that he could get stabbed, that, you know, he could, if he gave up Sweden and England didn't give him Belgium, that there was, you know, a chance he could lose too. And so, you know, if England had moved into Holland and taken Sweden, could have taken 2 units from Germany. So he panicked at the last minute and, you know, did something unexpected. He was supposed to move, you know, towards Russia and didn't. And so I was a bit worried about the Western Triple at this point. You know, Germany's had a loss of faith. England was a bit bitter about the whole thing. You know, Russia's not done much up in the north, just kind of standing pat. So, you know, from a negotiation point of view, there was a lot that went on after this in terms of Germany trying to make England understand that he was just worried about getting stabbed, and he should have negotiated it, or should have realized that it was a possibility earlier and negotiated it better, but instead panicked at the last minute and changed his moves. And so trying to keep England in the Western Triple, you know, Western Triple is not, if I'm playing Germany, the Western Triple is not my favorite opening, because I always am worried that England's going to stab me. And, you know, there was a chance that he could have done it here, and if Germany had made the moves that he had agreed to. And so, you know, that was a problem. It was quite a negotiation. I think the fact that the East seemed so coordinated, that the rat had seemed to come together here, actually pulled England back and said, he went, okay, I understand what happened there. And the East looks, like really aligned. If we start fighting in the West, we're going to get rolled over. Right. So, that was a lot of the conversation that we had after these moves were released.
That's very understanding by England, honestly, because I think if England had stabbed here, it wouldn't have been a particularly good decision. Medium term, I think there's obviously some short-term benefit, but unless France is really on board for a stab of Germany, then doing it this early for England would be really premature, and I don't think it would be very wise, because it would really limit the growth potential of England to just getting those two centers that England is snagging. England's not going to ever get into the German home centers if France wasn't on board with this stab, and now Russia and Germany will be on the same team. But that's how I would look at it if I were England. Yeah. I understand Germany being a bit paranoid, because as Germany, I would not want to do the Western Triple unless I think England and France will ally against me otherwise.
Yeah, totally agree. I think where the problem came up was England suggested this swapping Sweden for Belgium, and it provided the opportunity for a stab that Germany, and I hadn't really seen it either, but Germany saw it just right before the deadline, and never should have gone with the swap. I think it was thought it would be a good idea because England could bring more forces to bear against Russia, but it did allow for the possibility of the stab had Germany done the original moves. And so, probably should have just done something different. But yeah, that's the way it turned out. It was kind of funny that way. And it probably hurt the Western Triple. I think, we could have gotten a bit more momentum going here if this turn had not gone this way.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah. And it was a great turn for Austria because they pick up a build here. And, the border with Russia and Turkey is held and everything's there, and Turkey's starting to move around him now and into the Ionian, and so he's showing a good faith in the alliance between the Rat.
I did have a question or two for you about your moves here. I noticed first of all that you moved into Burgundy, which some people would perceive as threatening to Germany, and second, I noticed that you kept Mid-Atlantic back. You didn't advance it into North Africa. I was wondering about those moves.
Yeah, I mean, I had this discussion with Germany prior to the turn, and he was certainly worried about getting stabbed himself. I certainly was too, because I knew, I think this was the fall and I wasn't getting a build. And so I was quite worried that, England could have moved into the English Channel and the North Atlantic and come after me. And so, while Germany and I were getting all paranoid, England is being completely straightforward and keeping his position in the alliance and doing exactly what he should. Meanwhile, he and I are getting all paranoid and not doing what we should. And so, there was certainly a bit of concern around, part of my move to Burgundy was, if something came up, if there was going to be something going on in the area around Belgium, I wanted to be able to do something about that. And so, that was really the move to Burgundy. It was a bit of I don't want anyone else moving in Burgundy, and I want to be able to have some influence on Belgium if something happens there.
Makes sense. And following this move, you don't get any builds, so not really much to discuss in the build phase, I don't think.
No.
But in the spring, I see you support Turkey into Naples. So
so after or I guess just before this turn, I had been having a lot more discussions with Turkey, and he had asked me to support him into Naples, and he indicated that he would support me into Rome in return, whether it was in the fall or after. He would help me into Rome in return, and so I was comfortable then, that if I'm helping, Turkey's fleet into Naples, I can move into Tunis, unopposed from Western Med. And so from that standpoint, it seemed like it made good sense to do that. And I was hoping that Turkey would work with me and help me take Rome. And I thought he was going to stab Austria at some point. And this was really the whole basis of my strategy here was, yes, I'm going to help him in. he may or may not help me into Rome, but I thought it would just become so clear that he should stab Austria and he would have a lot to gain there, that he would see that and want to do it. It was a good faith gift on my part, because he probably would have had a bit more trouble getting in there. In retrospect, maybe I shouldn't have done that, but I was under the impression that someone was going to stab here, and I thought Turkey would stab Austria. Having moved his units away from Russia, I thought he was going to get into position where Austria would have to move more of his units towards the west, and it would be an easy stab for him.
Yeah, I do think, having gone over the moves in this game myself in preparation for doing these conversations, I think as Turkey, at some point I probably would have stabbed Austria, because Austria, is going to eventually have to fully expose the soft underbelly of the Austrian power to Turkey if Austria is to defend against the Western Triple effectively. So for Turkey, this should just be a waiting game until Austria becomes vulnerable. And I can see why you might expect that Turkey would naturally develop a good relation with France as a country that might hopefully be a cooperative neighbor in the future.
Yeah, I was really hoping that we could form a bit of a border. Maybe he would keep the Ionian and I would keep Tunis and the Tyrrhenian Sea, and we could just keep those fleets in place, and then we could start building armies and move. When you look at the way this has turned out, right? Italy is pretty much crippled now, so it's a 6-player game. You've got 3 in the west and 3 in the east, and the hard part is Germany and Austria are in the middle of those 6. So I thought those were the 2 countries that would get squeezed out eventually.
Yeah. And here we see you and Germany working together to try and keep Austria from getting a stable position in the center there by supporting the Italian surviving units.
Yeah. So I was talking to Italy here, and I agreed to support him into to Venice, which I thought was a good move. At the same time, I was trying to move into Rome myself, hoping that Turkey was going to support me, as he said he would on the previous turn. And instead, you can see here he supports Austria into Rome. Yeah. So that wasn't. This was not a good turn for me from that standpoint. I don't. As well, Germany supports Italy into Trieste. So I thought this was, I wasn't too disappointed that I didn't get Rome. I wasn't totally expecting it. But I thought this turned out fairly well, because Italy took back 2 of the supply centers that he had lost to Austria.
Agreed. That's a pretty good trade-off, really. You weakened your enemies more than they strengthened themselves. At least compared to what they were probably expecting. Yeah. Yep. But I was getting a bit concerned at this point that the stab that I was hoping for might be a little harder to get than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be pretty easy to get Turkey to stab Austria, and now I was starting to get a bit concerned that maybe it'll be a little harder than I thought. Yeah, partially because Turkey's looking at you guys over there, and that Western Triple is succeeding in a pretty clear and decisive way. Turkey must know that without that Austrian unit in the Ionian, the defense of the Ionian's not entirely assured, and if Austria starts to fall apart, it could be Turkey next, reduced from the 5 centers that Turkey has now to 3 or 4. So even though Turkey might benefit from Austria falling, there's a pretty big downside risk there. Yeah, true. So, I thought we were in a pretty good spot here, and then I believe I built another fleet in Marseille. It's Brest.
Oh, Brest. Okay. Yeah. So I was wanting to bring that fleet into North Africa. That was my thought. And, as well, I keep an eye on England. Even though England's done everything he said he was going to do, he's moved aggressively here against St. Petersburg and is in position to take it this year. That worked fine. But, I could have built in either one, I think. As the way this went, my next move is a bit of a mistake, but I don't think it was because of the build. So I moved here, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I moved the Piedmont army to Tuscany, and I get into Rome, which I was
Not expecting, surely.
pardon me. No, I wasn't expecting that.
I was thinking that's the reason why you moved into Tuscany is because you didn't expect to succeed in taking Rome.
No, not at all. And what I didn't see was Austria going all in to take Venice. Yeah, I didn't expect this outcome from this turn, which it wasn't in my thinking. And what I really should have done, the way it turns out, is I should have moved Paris to Burgundy here, or to Gascony, but anywhere so that it could cover Marseille, because once Italy is dislodged here, its its only retreat square is to Piedmont. And this causes me a huge amount of trouble later. But the rest of the turn was, I think, going pretty well. For the Western Triple, England gets into St. Petersburg, that disbands that fleet. Germany has moved on the middle, so that's all looking good from that standpoint. I thought everything was going well until Italy retreats here to Piedmont.
Yeah, that's that's a bad moment for you. I will say that thinking about it, in retrospect, I do think that you would have been better off if you had a fleet build in Marseille, but it wasn't a very big deal.
Well,
it's really the army in Paris needing to move to Gascony or Burgundy that caused you the problem.
But if I had a fleet in Marseille and moved it to Gulf of Lyon, at least I could have come back to Marseille and covered that square. It would have been a more flexible move. Yeah,
I think so.
But I was so thinking about offense through these turns that I never really thought about defense, and that was just a bit of the problem. When I thought about who I needed to, worry about, it wasn't Italy. I wasn't thinking that I needed to worry about Italy at all. And that was clearly my mistake.
Do you mind if I ask, were you at all worried about England at this point?
There was always this move to, Belgium to Picardy and the North Sea to the English Channel. I was always worried about that could have turned into a move against Brest. And that was part of the reason I left the army in Paris, because I was worried about England trying that stab just to pick off Brest against me. And that was the one I was worried about. Italy, I completely discounted. Yeah.
I assume that was why you built a fleet in Brest instead of building in Marseille, because it's a good hedge against England.
Yeah, exactly. The Italian army retreats to Piedmont, and then in the fall takes Marseille unopposed. So that was really unfortunate, because we had helped Italy get into Venice and Trieste just a prior turn. I didn't think he would necessarily come after me, but he was in a completely desperate situation. So I don't blame him at all. But now I'm moving in the Mid-Atlantic Ocean to Spain and Paris to Gascony, because I'm preparing to retake Marseille, but it's just totally loses the momentum of the attack. And then because I've gotten into Rome, I end up losing the Tyrrhenian Sea here to Turkey, and all of a sudden my position looks like it's cratering. I've lost a key fleet square, and I've lost one of my supply centers. So yeah, it's a bit of a mess here.
Yeah. Can't say I disagree. Your position is kind of scattered. On the bright side, you do have an army next to Rome, so you can defend that. And the fact that the unit Italy has in Venice is a fleet means that Italy can't use that unit against you. So there are bright patches in this position, even as it's definitely not optimal to help you advance. It's also not great for helping Turkey and Austria advance against you.
No. And I forget I think did the Turkish army convoy into Albania last turn?
I believe the Turkish army had moved into Serbia.
Through Serbia, yeah. And so, that army then takes Trieste. And we had some debates in our Western Triple chat about whether that was a stab of Austria, or they were just arranged to sort of a spring move into Serbia, followed by the fall move into Trieste, and that's what happens here. And so that Turkish army just is still working with Austria. The coordination that they've done here is perfect. to take back some of those supply centers that they lost from Italy. So then now they've gotten the first half of that recovered. And the rest of the Austrian position is holding up pretty well against Germany. Russia and Austria together can hold back the German units. And, a stab by Turkey anywhere would have been crushing for us. But, he turns out to be a great ally for the Rat here, and he works with them really well.
Yeah. I think Turkey and especially Austria must have been playing this really well behind the scenes, because their teamwork is really solid, and I think would have held the southeast for them indefinitely, probably.
Yeah. And so, we get to this point of the game, and I go, you know what? I'm in a lot of trouble in the south. Turkey and Austria are working together brilliantly. Rome is surrounded. I can't really hold on to it next year, I can see. The Austria-Russia cooperation is quite good. They seem to be working fairly well. The bright spot is that England has taken St. Petersburg, but if I look at it as a whole, I think the Rat is working better and coordinating better than the Western Triple. If you look at it from beginning to end, I think they've done a better job. And maybe not quite as natural position as the Western Triple. They've done a better job of coordinating and being aggressive here, and not being as paranoid about the stab as we've been in the West.
Yeah, I think they're doing a better job. I often think of it this way: the efficiency of any alliance is in the ability to act as if you were all just one country. And Austria and Turkey and Russia, to a great extent, are moving as if they're all just one power together that doesn't have to reserve any units to defend against each other, that's just focused on pushing their front line forward and defending their shared collective centers. Which, acting that way makes the alliance much more efficient. It almost always means one or two of the powers are leaving themselves open to stabs, but if no one takes advantage of that, then that makes for a very powerful alliance.
Yeah. So, Germany and I are regularly, pretty much every year or so, having a conversation as to whether England's in a good position to stab him or not. But it's around this time that I realize, what, we need England, we need to sort of go all in on the Western Triple, or we're going to get beat. The Rat is working together really well. If we don't just really throw into this three-way alliance, we're not going to be successful, and we're going to start moving backwards. Because I've given up on any chance of Turkey stabbing. He's been a beautiful ally, and we're in a lot of trouble. Germany actually looks a little outnumbered in the middle of the board where the armies are. I look outnumbered in the south where my fleets are. So we start talking at this point. Okay, how do we get some of the English units to the front, right? And talking about whether some of the English units can come down into the Med and help my position there. And whether we can get that second English army into Livonia or somewhere over there, so that that position on the ground can get reinforced. Because I didn't like our position here at all. I thought we were starting to get beat.
I think you're right. I think that they've done a better job of deploying their forces so that all of their units are on the front lines. And they have a nice option to destroy your fleet in Rome here if they take advantage of it. I don't remember if they do in the next season.
Yeah, they do end up getting it.
They do actually go after that fleet in Rome and destroy it.
Yeah.
And they even get into Tunis. Oh.
Yeah. So we debated a little bit here about how to proceed. But you can see the English fleet comes into the English Channel. That was agreed to. Germany comes into Burgundy to keep the Italian army from retreating there, which was another concern. So, at this point, I'm like, I could get stabbed, and there's nothing I can do about it, because if I don't trust everybody in the West, I'm done anyway, right?
Yeah.
So there is always the balancing of, okay, what's my individual position versus the position of my alliance. And so I think where we did okay as a Western Triple, but we were a bit worried about our individual positions a bit too much. Whereas in the East, I think they did a much better job of coordinating. England's probably got the best position because he's taken away Russians' ability to build in the north, so he's completely safe. And I actually have to ask him to come and bring his fleets around my undefended border and help me in the south against this great alliance. But at the same time, I think if we hadn't decided, if I had said, Germany, I don't want you coming into Burgundy, and I don't want the English support, I think we would have gotten into big trouble here. I would have been in a lot of trouble for sure.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this is the moment, or this is the time period when the Western Triple starts acting more like it's one power, and you all have some interests in common that need to be preserved at all costs. Which is good, because this also happens to be the moment when Austria and Russia put all their units at Germany's gates and are really trying to push this Rat Alliance as far as it can go. It's pretty impressive that they managed to get as far as they do here.
Yep. And, having previously seen the move from Bulgaria to Serbia to Trieste, now we see Turkey moving Bulgaria to Romania, and it becomes, obvious that he's going to move into Galicia in the fall, and solidify the ground position there for the Rat. Yeah. And so, Turkey's taking advantage of the spring turns to move through supply centers, so all his armies aren't stuck, away from the center of action. And here in the south after this turn, I bring the fleet into Gulf of Leon. England starts to bring his fleet down. We're planning for him to come into North Africa. But yeah, I mean, there wasn't a lot of progress for me to make in this fall turn. There was no way to get Rome back. I just tried to help the Italian fleet in Venice from getting taken out. But it was pretty much safe there.
Yeah, this is a repositioning kind of sequence you can see.
Yeah, England finally gets the army into St. Petersburg, so building up the ground position there. England looks good all around, but the rest of us are having trouble making any progress.
Honestly, the English position is so secure that if I'm England at this point, I'm seriously thinking about stabbing one of you guys, because I'm sure that the end of the game is approaching pretty soon. England could enhance the English position by 1 or 2 dots and get the board top just by doing that, taking maybe Brest and Portugal, or Sweden, or Denmark and Holland, something like that.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you. I would have been thinking that way too. Maybe waiting until 1908 or 1909 to do it, but how can I get in a position to do that? Yeah. I was trying to throw out all the warnings that, if England stabs one of us, the Rat's going to get all the gains, and England's just going to get a dot or two, and those kind of warnings. But England, I never really, well, he never stabs, as you'll see. But we were always worried about it, and it never happened. He was a great ally.
I guess he figured the Rat would get all the cheese.
Yeah, exactly.
And because this was a repositioning season, there's not really a whole lot of build movement.
Nope.
Yeah, it's just Turkey gets a fleet.
Yep. And I keep hoping Turkey will build more armies, because that would be better for a stab. But no, he just keeps building more fleets for the Med. So,
and Austria destroyed the Austrian fleet, so it seems like there's an agreement there that Turkey will be their navy and Austria will be most of their army.
Yeah. So Austria had to disband there. But got rid of the fleet, which puts them all in on the ground position, and so that's going to be their role. Russia's all armies, and so Turkey's going to be all fleets, pretty much, right? So, and that's they're just working really well together that way.
Yeah, it's a good division of labor, and they're clearly going to be able to hold a line at this point, because unless Italy is willing to risk Venice in order to help you by cutting support from Apulia or something, I don't see any way that you guys are going to get any Italian dots for the Western Triple. The only progress I can see from this position is that you guys will probably take Tunis and eventually probably take Silesia back, but that's not a center, so it's that's not much help.
Yeah, I mean, this from this position, I could see that. Yeah, I can use the Tyrrhenian Sea to cut the Ionian support, and use Western Med and England support from North Africa to take Tunis. What I was most concerned about was losing the Tyrrhenian Sea. So yeah, I was expecting to lose that here, even though I thought, well, we can get Tunis, and so another fleet would be great, to solidify the blockade a bit more. But yeah, difficult to see making a ton of progress here.
Yeah. And here in the fall, I see you guys do make that move. You do get Tunis. You don't lose Tyrrhenian Sea because, I don't know, Turkey was just very defensively focused and decided to just support the Ionian to hold instead of trying to, play off of what you were naturally going to try and do, which is take Tunis.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Tunis would move on the Tyrrhenian. That would have been the move that I was expecting. And so instead, Tunis gets disbanded.
Tunis, and even if Tunis and Naples supported Ionian Sea into Tyrrhenian, that would have succeeded. So it's just interesting that Turkey doesn't try any of that. It doesn't try to go after Tyrrhenian at all.
Yeah, I mean, they were clearly focused on taking Venice, and I guess he was worried that I might try for Rome. So he uses Naples to defend Rome, and as a result, we pick up Tunis in the south. But in the middle of the board, you can see Germany is blockading as well. It's a lot of supporting, nothing really aggressive here. It's just a long line of supports all the way from St. Pete down to Burgundy.
Yeah, I do see that. It's looking like this game is going to be grinding to a halt pretty soon. You can really tell that people aren't going to be able to advance much further in any direction.
Yeah. I mean, I think realize here that the Western Triple has 1 or 2 units more than the Rat. Not many, though, but a couple. But some of the English units are a bit wasted. Some of those fleets in the north are really not able to contribute much to, advancing any position. And with the position, that's a bit why, there's not much advantage on either side.
And with the positions like this, the numbers don't really matter quite so much because the Rat does have enough numbers to fill all of the spaces along the border, and that's really all they need.
Yeah.
So
I build in Marseille here. We talked about whether I should build an army actually, but we were starting to feel a bit more comfortable about the blockade in the south, feeling like we had enough fleets. But there was there was a bit of a realization that it was hard to advance the position anywhere we were. But at least we were moving backwards, which had been the concern, a year or two before.
Yeah, not moving backwards is definitely better.
Yeah,
it's definitely an improvement. I do think you're going to have a very hard time moving forward any further at all because you can't support an attack on Naples, or and Ionian has ample support coming from the Turkish side, and Rome is going to be supported from Naples, so should be impossible to take Rome or Naples, and then you've got Apulia and Rome supporting Venice, so it's pretty unbreakable.
My concern here was that, we're going to be sitting until 1908 or 1909, and then England is going to stab me and pick up a couple of SC right before the end of the game at the designated end year.
It would be hard to blame them. It's just what makes sense.
Well, and to be honest, if I was in England's position, that's what I would have been lining up. And maybe even as Turkey, I would be thinking the same thing, right? I'm gonna, because I think we're all like at 6 units here, right? It's like, it's quite equal. Russia's only 4, but the rest of us, I think, are at 6. So I'm thinking, okay, Turkey and England are in the best position. They're going to be able to do a little stab right at the end and pick up a unit or 2 each. And one of them is going to top the board. And then the rest of us will be, closer to that, 4 or 5 area, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's not what happened.
I know. This is the end of the game. This is the final position.
So Russia proposes a draw, and he's only got 4 units, but he's clearly worried about a stab because Turkey can take Romania anytime he wants, or even Austria could, for that matter.
Yeah.
He proposes the draw, and I sit for more than a day. I forget how long you get to deliberate a draw. Is it 2 days? Anyway, and I sit for a while thinking about this. Mm-hmm. And, at the end of it, I go, well, I haven't seen anything. There was no major argument in the public press or anything. So I might as well accept this. A draw is good for me here. I figure, if something changes, it's probably going to change for the worse for me. So I accept it. And as it turns out, I think I was the last one to accept the draw because the game is adjudicated right afterwards. And so as a drawn game. So yeah, and then this turns out to be the final position.
I think accepting the draw for you was wise, because I don't think your position could have gotten any better, and it could have gotten a little bit worse, because you could have been stabbed by either England or Germany or both. And at the same time, I think you did well to get this draw when you did, and it's fortunate that Russia was more worried about his position going downhill, and probably, kind of pushed this on his allies a little bit. I'm sure Turkey wasn't very worried about the Turkish position going downhill. So.
No. I mean, I think, the players that I expected to not accept the draw were England and Turkey. They've kept the three-way alliances going, even though they're the ones working a bit more from the back. They can stab at any given time. So I'm thinking they're gonna not accept this draw. They're gonna keep this going until 1909. But surprisingly, both of them accepted it. And I think that shows that both of them were really strong alliance players, right? They were looking at this from a 3 versus 3 point of view, and both of them played very very authentically as alliance players, and didn't really think about stabbing. The only player who got stabbed in this game was Italy, and that poor guy was gone. But yeah, so from that standpoint, I think the alliances were most interesting in this game. Some games you see multiple stabs back and forth all over the place, and this is clearly not one of those. This is one where the alliances were. This game was all about the alliances.
Ironclad. And yeah, I think you're right. England and Turkey managed to be surprisingly strong alliance players. I mean, initially, Turkey's movements seemed kind of opportunistic, but Turkey ended up recognizing the threat that you guys presented from the West and reacting appropriately as soon as it fully materialized. So, unfortunate for those of you in the Western Triple, because you didn't get to experience the full efficiency of which that alliance is capable, but still, it was clearly a well-played game on both sides, and otherwise, one of your alliances would have collapsed, and this would not have ended up being this 6-way draw.
Yeah. So and this was an interesting game for me, because there was no stab in the Western Triple, for one. That's never happened in a game that I played in before. And then second, I have never been in a game where there was a rat alliance, and so this was interesting from that standpoint. Also, I've heard about such an alliance, but I've just never seen one work well in practice. And that was this one worked really well for them. So I thought it was interesting from those 2 points of view.
I think I've only ever seen the rat alliance form in response to a Western Triple.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah, usually it's. Usually that three-way, those three countries are usually jockeying with each other to see which two are going to emerge, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting game, because this is what happens when you have a bunch of strong and cautious people, testing their strength against each other in this way, and each of them very, very keen to avoid losing ground because they turned their back on the real threat. And so you guys over in the West, who were the real threat, didn't get to do very much. And do you have any last thoughts you'd like to share?
Yeah, it's just, it's not every game involves a lot of stabs. Sometimes you just see some really strong alliance play, and yeah, this was definitely one of those.
I hope you enjoyed this diplomacy commentary after action report. And if you liked it, you know what to do. Like and subscribe, and check out my blog and my Patreon or Ko-Fi. I should note the people whose names now appear on screen are those without whom this channel and its growth, as it currently exists, might not be possible. So they have my thanks. And until next time, Florida Man out.